What if I told you only a handful have crossed the line from great to immortal? Not top 10 overtakes. I'm talking the elite who hit 3 or more world titles and never looked back. Out of hundreds since 1950, only 11 drivers live in this club. That's not rare. That's locked behind a boss fight. Here's the plan. 11 stories, 0 fluff. The smooth brainiac, the kid who tore off 9 straight, the guy who won with 4 different teams, the safety crusader who still cooked the field, the record breaker, the GOAT contender, the dynasty builder. You know the names, now learn the recipes. Ready for the modern template? So let's start with the dynasty that's already printing banners. Max Verstappen, the dynasty builder. How do you make a video game look underpowered? You win 19 out of 22 in 2023 and still sound annoyed you missed the other 3. That's the energy. An 86.36% win rate, the most dominant single season in F1 history. The scoreboard screams cheat code, and he's on the radio hunting for the half second he left in turn 12 like it owes him rent. Max is the modern template. The spark was messy, loud, and argued to death, but the sequel was quiet perfection. After the noise, he turned the sport into a schedule. Lights out, gap build, pit window, control, cool-down lap that sounds like a grocery list. He went from chaos merchant to metronome with a grudge. You want tension? Fine. Is it the Red Bull rocket, or is he bending the grid to his pace? Here's the tell. When he's not on pole, the opening laps look like a forced tutorial on how to pass. Late break sends, where DRS is a formality. If the door is half shut, he makes a new door. And in the wet, while others tiptoe, he raises the pace until race direction starts sweating. Also, context matters. He became the youngest race winner at 18, but he wasn't the youngest champion. That's Sebastian Vettel's mark. The early boom set the ceiling. The later polish smashed it. Those streak numbers weren't a happy accident. The 10-race win streak in 2023 is what happens when your worst day is still a rare off-podium blip and everyone treats P5 like a disaster. The pattern repeats. Clear the dirty air quick, build a no-penalty buffer, treat the tires like a savings account, cash out in the final stint. It's dull for rivals, simply lovely for the stats nerds. Youth plus consistency is rare. Most young champs wobble after their first hit. He did the opposite. He cut the mistakes, track limits tidy, safety car restarts milked, blue flags used as moving pick and rolls. The aggression didn't vanish. It got house-trained. Same teeth, less bark, more bite. The micro arc from Abu Dhabi. Arguments to 2023 silence is brutal. Early on, the paddock group chat was full of think pieces and snark. A season later, the tone turned to damage limitation. Teams stopped talking about how to beat him and started talking about how to stop the bleeding. If he was on a 2-stop, you copy. If he went long, you pray your tires feel the same way about life. Across track types, he vacuumed points. Street tracks, where mistakes amplify, he floated the walls and rarely gave the stewards much real work. High-speed temples, clean lines, early throttle, and that sixth sense for wind gusts. Hot nasty deg, he whispers to the rubber. His outlaps land right on the cliff edge without falling. Cold green surfaces, he builds temperature like there's a hidden slider in the cockpit. The build is easy to see. Early career lunges could be coin flips. Now they're invoices. He picks fights that pay. Fewer lockups. Better exits. He leaves half a meter more when it matters and 0 when it doesn't. Race control of pace is predictable to the point it hurts. You can almost call his sector deltas before they hit the timing screen. Mini payoff? This is a dynasty forming. The wins pile up. The excuses run out. And the best part is the tone. He treats every Sunday like a job he's both overqualified for and slightly bored by, which is terrifying for everyone else still cramming for the test. Now, not every empire is built on raw pace. Some are built on picking the right speed, every lap, for years. So meet the man who turned restraint into a weapon, Alain Prost, the professor. What if your superpower is never going max speed, just the right speed? That's Prost. Everyone else sprints. He paces, breathes, then wins the marathon by half a lap without breaking a sweat. It's not flashy, it's brutal in a quieter way. They called him the professor for a reason. Cerebral lines, calculated laps, a syllabus for Sunday. He ran seasons like a calculator with a steering wheel. Add points when it counts, subtract risk when it's dumb, divide the tire life so the last laps still pay. He'd stalk a race rather than strangle it. If P2 paid the title, he'd take P2 and smirk. That wasn't cowardly. That was mastery of the rule book that says the champion is the one with the most points, not the most fireworks. Fans wanted chaos. Prost mailed end-of-season checkmate. You show up for sparks and he hands you a spreadsheet that ruins your Sunday. The rivalry with the Storm on the other side of the garage turned that whole approach into a weapon. One side hunted the edge. Prost made the edge come to him, then cashed the difference like a coupon. Suzuka became a courtroom. Collisions, flags, stewards, and the margins where titles swing. He knew the lines to cross and the ones to leave alone. He kept his cool, mostly, which sounds boring until you realize composure at 300 kilometers per hour is a performance stat. When half the grid tilted, he stayed level, and level wins over a full campaign. 51 wins in an era where cars broke because a gremlin sneezed? That's not luck. That's consistency as a blade. He protected hardware, protected tires, protected race position like a man who knew a DNF cost more than one glory pass. When reliability was roulette, he played percentages and walked out with chips. Inside that McLaren Honda garage, you had two alphas staring at the same wall, reading different scriptures. One trusted faith, Prost trusted probability. That meant lifting when the fuel readout whispered trouble, banking track position before the pit window exploded, setting a pace that made the last stint feel like free money. It looked dull until you tried to beat it and realized you were cooked by lap 40. Fuel strategy was a craft to him. Short shift here, lift a breath there, use dirty air to trim drag, even line up behind back markers to hit your delta without lighting up the temp numbers. Tire saving wasn't go slow. It was a rhythm. Roll mid-corner, square the exit, build heat without killing the shoulder. He read races without an army of overlays. Just lap time feel, gaps in his head, and a radio that sounded like a weather report. Then he stepped away, returned, and added a fourth in 93 with a different package and a new rule landscape. That's longevity, that's adaptation. New regs, fresh teammates, changed tools, same outcome. It proved he wasn't married to one formula. He was the formula. Mini payoff. Prost showed that intelligence can beat raw pace and makes the defeat sting longer because you got outthought, not outdragged. The clock said fast, the standings said smarter. And while he wore the thinking cap, the next chapter shows what happens when the polite smile masks a hitman's rhythm from the front. All right, swap the lab coat for a clean visor and a grin that fooled nobody. Sebastian Vettel, the baby-faced assassin. The smile said class prefect. The lap time said detention for everyone. You looked at that kid and thought, teacher's pet. Then the lights went out and he grounded the entire grid by Sunday lunch. That contrast is the fun part. Soft voice, sharp elbows, and a stopwatch that never lied. Youngest champion at 23 years and 134 days in 2010. Babyface with a title belt. At Red Bull Peak, qualifying looked like laser-guided missiles. Front row on repeat, then lights to flag like a metronome that only played one beat, clean air. He'd nail sector 1s with a tiny lift, hook the middle like he was on rails, and the last sector was just a flex. Start, cover the inside, break DRS, control the temps, and disappear. 4 straight championships from 2010 to 2013 made the routine look inevitable. So was it Newey's wind tunnel witchcraft, or Seb's art class with a front-limited car, and those spicy blown diffusers? I'm not with you on this, just the car. That package asked for trust at the rear and commitment at entry. The floor wanted throttle to seal the diffuser, which means you feed the gas while logic screams no. He could do that lap after lap without blinking. That's not luck, that's wires soldered right. Take the hits. 2011 poles, and in 2013, he closed the season with 9 straight wins, the last 9 races of the year, tying Ascari's mark and freezing the paddock into acceptance. Confidence snowballed, and the sun never touched it. He'd rip a quali banker, then find a 10th in the same corner by trimming steering and breathing on the throttle. On Sundays, he'd stretch the first stint just enough to flip pit windows, rejoin in clean air, and shut the door with a purple lap for dessert. Simply lovely for your blood pressure if you wore blue. The secret sauce lived in micro-adjustments. Mid-corner, he'd roll the speed, keep the front loaded, and still sit the car on a fat rear platform. Exit, minimal scrub, early throttle, and a straightened wheel. Where others fought rear snaps, he balanced the car with tiny inputs, like tuning a guitar without touching the pegs. That rear stability wasn't just confidence. It was a bridge to every lap strategy asked for. Then the halo slipped. New regs, different airflow, less rear faith, and the style car match went off-key. Post-Red Bull, he had flashes and some costly errors, but the 4 stay locked in a vault you can't crack. That run is proof the driver and the concept fused. When the synergy vanished, the margins did too. It's a lesson. Form is real, but context is the boss. Multi-21 is the real peek behind the curtain. Polite smile, team orders on the radio, and then, nope. He took the track position, took the win, and wore the heat. Ruthless? Yes. Champions keep trophies. Apologies don't fit in the cabinet. That day said more than a press release ever could. Here's the twist. Late career, he turned into the paddock's big brother, picked up rookies, owned mistakes, stood up on causes, carried teams with words as much as laps. Leadership and empathy raised his stock even as pace dipped. You respected the fighter, you fell for the person. Mini payoff. His peak is the benchmark. When car and driver fuse, the season ends by autumn. And if that sounds comfortable, the next lesson was anything but. Titles hunted in a world where safety was optional and survival was a stat. So let's talk about the guy everyone else measures against. Juan Manuel Fangio, the original final boss. Try winning 5 titles while seatbelts were a suggestion and cars were steel bathtubs with explosions. That's the entry fee to Fangio's club. The man walked into motorsport on hard mode and still played it like a casual Sunday drive. You and I talked grip and setups. He talked survival with lap time attached. His championships came in 1951, 1954, 1955, 1956, and 1957, and he was 46 when he sealed the last one. Longevity with pace is a rare combo. He made it look routine. He didn't just stick with one golden project and farm points. He lifted trophies with 4 different teams: Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Mercedes, Maserati, which is adaptability on nightmare mode. New engineers, new engines, new quirks, same result. If the car had a soul, he learned its language faster than the mechanics could swap a plug. That's not luck. That's a universal translator built into the right foot. Modern fans say it's the car. Cool. Fangio says, give me 4 different ones and I'll still cook you. He jumped between outfits like a contractor who never misses a deadline, and every boss left smarter. The paddock kept changing the test. He kept handing in A's. Say it with me. I don't care which badge is on the nose cone if the guy inside keeps ending the season with the big trophy. His win rate wasn't a vibe. It was math. 24 wins in 51 championship starts, 47.1%. Drop the mic numbers in any era. Never mind one where reliability was a rumor. That's like showing up to coin flips with a loaded coin. He didn't just win. He normalized winning. Fast starts, early reads on rivals, energy saved for when the race got ugly, then bang, control. Here's the real cheat code: technical fluency and mechanical sympathy before telemetry lived on the dash. He could feel a bearing singing wrong, smell a mix going rich, sense a tire going grainy by the tone in the corner. Lift a breath, cool the brakes, short shift for 5 laps. Bring the car back from the red without giving away the lead. That's a skill set every engineer dreams about. You want micro stories? Mid-race comebacks where he set a pace that looked rude, then eased off to keep the rubber alive, then hit again when the pit board said go. Tire nursing turned sprint races into rolling marathons he directed like a conductor. Rivals chased laps. He managed arcs. 2 passes, then a lull, then the hammer. Always with a plan. Off track, he carried a gentleman aura with steel under it. Soft edges in public. Eyes that told you the nonsense ends when the visor drops. He'd sign a program, then give you a stare that said the next corner owes him respect. That balance built a legend that lived in garages and cafes long after the transporter left. Context matters. Circuits had no forgiveness. Medical care was a gamble. Survival itself was a stat, and he stacked wins on top like it was normal. That's absurd. That's why his highlight reel doubles as a history lesson in risk. Mini payoff. Fangio is the template. Change teams. Keep winning. Retire as the measuring stick everyone else trips over. He left the sport holding a ruler with his name on it, and it still fits. And if switching teams was his flex, the next play is even louder. When the tools aren't right, you make your own, and then you win with that. So here's the blueprint for doing it your way and still cashing the big checks. Jack Brabham, the self-made champion. If your boss isn't giving you the right car, become the boss and build the car. That's not a meme. That's Jack Brabham's business card. 3 titles, 1959, 1960, 1966, including one while running his own team, wearing 2 hats, and still finding his helmet. CEO by weekday, champion on Sunday. Simply lovely. DIY greatness at this level is rare because it's chaos. You're not just chasing lap time, you're signing checks, choosing suppliers, and arguing about gearbox casings before strapping in. Brabham made that circus look normal. He kept it lean. He spec'd parts that didn't need gold plating. Then he drove the thing fast enough to prove the paperwork was worth it. Owner-driver is a tug of war. Engineering focus pulls you into the garage. Racecraft pulls you to the grid. Fail either, and the weekend collapses. He balanced both under one helmet. Briefings were short, fixes were practical, and the feedback loop was tight. You can feel that when a driver says, change that angle, not the whole wing. Less theory, more lap time. Everyone knows the story where he pushed a car across the line. That wasn't a fluke for a highlight reel. That was the brand. Get it home. Scrape the points. Make the finish happen, even if you're out of fuel or out of patience. The message was simple. This team will not DNF if human legs can sub in. He backed the mid-engine wave early. For him, it wasn't about being clever. It was about being right. Shift the mass, sharpen the turn-in, keep the tail planted on throttle. That engineering brain showed in his driving lines. He'd straighten exits, stay off the curb that upset the oiling, and ask for a setup you'd call plain until you saw it eat a stint without complaint. The move from Cooper to MRD, what became Brabham, Was the moment ambition turned into a factory, not a palace, a workshop? He recruited smart, laid out a simple design path, and made sure the car matched the calendar, not a fantasy sketch. You felt that discipline in how the team rolled through a race week. No fluff, just parts that worked. Now the good bit. 1966. New 3-liter formula, fresh regs, everyone chasing raw grunt. He pairs with Repco and goes the other way. Reliability and simplicity over fireworks. While others cooked clutches chasing horsepower numbers, the Brabham Repco stayed cool, sipped fuel, and finished where it started or better. In a shifting landscape, he chose a platform that didn't break. Points love that. That title with his own name on the nose, and Repco Outback was proof the engineering calls weren't guesses. They were reads on the rulebook and the calendar. This built a legacy beyond trophies. Team ownership wasn't a vanity project. It became a pipeline for talent and ideas. Young drivers learned in a system that valued fixes over excuses. Engineers got a boss who spoke their language in torque and temps, not just lap charts. Plenty wanted this model. Few could execute it without the wheels coming off the balance sheet. Mini payoff. Jack Brabham pulled the ultimate flex, champion as CEO and driver. He picked the parts, set the vibe, and then beat you with the product. And while he proved you could run the shop and win the race, the next lesson asks something different from a champion. How to win fast while telling everyone to slow down. So here's the lesson in pace with purpose. Jackie Stewart, the safety crusader. He won fast while telling everyone to slow down and fix the death traps. That's the energy. He'd pass you on Saturday, pass you on Sunday, then on Monday ask why the barriers still looked like garden fences. The lap time never argued with the message. Triple champion and still treating safety like a second title chase. He campaigned in briefings, in press scrums, and on the radio, then showed up and beat the grid anyway. You want cognitive dissonance? Try leading a race and still calling for a medical car standard. That's not PR. That's priorities with a stopwatch. Plenty of drivers rolled their eyes. Toughen up. Cool story. He kept winning and kept pushing, literally moving the conversation from bravado to infrastructure. While others wore danger as a badge, he treated it like bad planning. You don't prove courage by gambling with a marsh field and hay bales. You prove it by braking at the last board and still asking for guardrails. He went to promoters and asked for proper runoffs, barriers that didn't splinter, marshals who were trained, and medical teams with a plan that didn't involve guesswork. Concrete changes followed. Full-face helmets became the norm. Seatbelts were standard, not optional. Medical facilities got upgrades, so the first response looked like a clinic, not a guess. That professionalized the circus. You felt it in the paddock flow. Briefings got sharper. Rescue drills got real. The show stopped being luck plus heroics and started looking like a sport. On track, the style was finesse, not force, precision in the wet, patience in mixed grip, and those tidy lines that spared the tires while still chunking purple sectors. Strategic pit calls before strategy had its own department. He'd read the cloud line, the temperature drop, the rubber pickup, and decide the lap to box like he invented the undercut. That's racecraft as a quiet science. There were days he refused to race or tore into a layout he thought was a trap. Those moments mattered. Sit out, get flack, keep the stance, then return, win, and show. The point wasn't fear, it was standards. That pressure shaped circuits and nudged governance from shrug to action. You don't change a system by whispering. You change it by parking a victory next to your argument. 27 wins in cars that punished mistakes with hospital trips. That's consistency under threat. He conserved margins you couldn't see on TV, braking in a shorter zone because the surface offline was junk, avoiding a curb that hit a crack, holding gears to save a stressed bearing. Empathy for the grid's future ran alongside that pace. He wanted rivals to go home. The build of his legacy isn't just numbers, it's that champions after him had a real shot at a long career. Better fences, better marshals, medical crews who arrived with kit, not hope, and a culture that saw safety as performance. Because when you trust the track, you brake 5 meters later without lying to yourself. Mini payoff. He didn't only win races, he won the right for others to keep racing. The stopwatch proved he was fast. The changes proved he was right. And that mix, speed with standards, sets the stage for a different kind of courage, where the next legend measures risk, does the math, and still finds a way to win. So here's the masterclass in cold-blooded choices that still cash trophies. Niki Lauda, the calculator. If pain had a lap time, Lauda beat it by a 1/10. The man turned agony into a sector split. You hear grit tossed around a lot. With him, it was numbers first, nerves second, and then the right foot. Cold logic under a scorched helmet. Simply lovely and a bit terrifying. The story everybody knows starts with flame and ends with silverware. Nürburgring, the crash, the burns, the hospital, the bandages. Then weeks later, he's back in the cockpit. Not a movie montage, just a decision tree. What do I need to drive? What risk is worth it? What points are on the table? He stitched titles across different eras and different colors, built on the same math, 1975, 1977, and, after stepping away, 1984. That's the tension with him. Do you quit, or do you weigh the odds and keep going? He always did the math. Not macho, not meek, just measured. He'd stare at the variables, weather, car state, rivals' pace, and pick the route that won the war, even if the crowd wanted a duel. 1976 is the sharpest example. He stepped out in the rain at Japan, took the hit in the standings, and lost by a point. Everyone yelled about courage. He showed another kind. Say no today, live to win tomorrow. Then he came back and took the next title. That's not luck. That's long game. His secret weapon was feedback that turned bolts into lap time. He'd bring the car in and hand the engineers clear, repeatable notes, corner entry balance, traction phase, brake feel, like a checklist. Changes actually mapped to the stopwatch. No drama, no mystery, just actionable detail that made the next run better. Later, that same clarity worked in suits and meetings, not just overalls. Micro story time. He left, ran airlines, did real business, and then just rocked up again and collected another title with McLaren in 1984. Not a nostalgia tour, a calculated return after retirement. The vibe was, I've done the cost benefit, this still adds up. That's a rare mindset. Most comebacks chase a feeling. He chased a result, adapted to a different team and era, and still found the margin. On Sundays, he farmed points. Strategic race management over showmanship. Harvest the start, avoid dumb fights, stop on the right lap, and protect the car without bleeding time. If P2 paid the title path, he left P2 in the bank. He'd shadow a rival until their tires blinked, then pass once and only once. Clean, tidy, no highlight spam. The build continued after helmets. At Mercedes, he spotted talent and set a culture that didn't worship hype. Straight talk, clear roles, zero nonsense. The kind of room where a driver knows what's expected and the car gets faster because politics shut up and engineers breathe. That's how you seed a run of trophies, make the boring things work every week. Mini payoff. Lauda proved bravery isn't just going flat everywhere. It's knowing when to lift, when to park it, and when to return with a plan that wins you a decade. Legend status comes from choices, not noise. And if that style feels too neat for highlight hunters, wait for the one who won 3 by keeping it quiet, clever, and just a little bit cruel. So let's talk about the champion who let the results do the shouting. Nelson Piquet, the forgotten legend. How do you win 3 and still get left off casual GOAT lists? Be quiet, clever, and brutal. That's Nelson Piquet. You want fireworks? He brought a dimmer switch and still left with the trophy. Low volume on the microphone, high volume on the lap chart. The guy lived in the blind spots and feasted there. He mastered the turbo era's mood swings, boost spikes, fragile bits, fuel limits that turned Sundays into math tests with exhaust flames. He didn't fight the car, he made it talk. Feel over drama, psychology over noise. His titles came in 1981, 1983, and 1987, spanning the rise of complex turbo technology that punished heavy feet and sloppy minds. Yes, he got overshadowed by louder narratives. He shared the stage with a national icon and still stacked 3. Posters sold the myths you know. The scoreboard sold the truth he kept. Broadcasters love a storm. Piquet was fog, cold, creeping, and always there lap after lap. And look, I don't care how flashy your highlight reel is. The flag only waves for the points leader. The versatility was the tell. Titles with Brabham and Williams, different factories, different engines, different ways to win, proved range. He could take a package that loved straight-line punch or one that lived on chassis balance, then squeeze the shape of the season out of it. That's not system riding. That's system bending. His edge lived in temperature. Tire Whisperer isn't cute branding, it was the plan. He'd bring the rubber up slow, hold it in the sweet spot, and then punish anyone who cooked theirs. On a hot day, he'd wait for your fronts to cry, then execute one clean move. On a cold day, he'd tease heat without tearing a chunk, nursing when the race wanted patience, striking when the clock screamed go. The mind games were extra mileage. In the garage, little comments. In the press pen, tiny pokes. You tilt a rival 2 degrees, and the breaking point moves a meter. That's free lap time. He'd seed doubt about setups, bait rivals on fuel, or frame a narrative that made you second-guess your plan before the 5 lights even came on. Edges gained before the apex. He understood the turbo's split personality. Lag like a yawn, then a punch. He mapped it with his foot. Feather here, lean there, keep the boost in the window without frying the bits. He'd work with the engineers to set the gear ratios for drivability, not bravado, then wring pace out of the map the whole stint. That's how you survive a decade that ate engines. On track, he could split his weekends in two personalities. Quali trim trickery, trim the wing, ride the edge, put the car where it forces your hand on Sunday. Then race day efficiency, long first stint, cover the undercut without panic, and leave just enough tire for the kill lap. You watch the same car on different settings because the brain behind it was running two playbooks. Not the hero of posters, but the boss of the points table. 3 times. That's the resume line. The sport remembers loud feuds and sparkly passes. He stacked outcomes. You can sell drama. You can't sell past a champion who understood how a season breathes. Mini payoff. Piquet is the stealth template. Win the war even if someone else wins the headlines. The quiet guy with the calculator and the nasty grin at the apex, until the clouds roll in and precision turns into faith on wet tarmac. So when the sky turns mean and the track turns slick, one name owned the moment: Ayrton Senna, the rain god. When the heavens open, Senna didn't drive in the rain, he made the rain keep up. You watched the onboard and the wheel barely moved, like the car was reading his mind. Other drivers hunted grip. He drew it. Wet weather mastery wasn't a side quest. It was a defining trait that made entire fields look undergeared. 3 titles, 1988, 1990, 1991, cut with qualifying fury and this weird zen focus that made pole laps feel like rituals. He'd go out, light up the timing screens, and take a breath like the job was done on Saturday. The myth wasn't hype. It was built, lap by lap, with margins that felt rude to everyone else on the grid. For years, the pole record had his name stamped on it, which tells you everything about the level he hit when the fuel was low and the track was clear. But the hunt for perfection lived next door to ruthless edges. He chased purity and still used elbows when the moment asked. The clash with the guy in the other red and white car turned ethics into a live wire. What's fair when you're playing for a crown? Where do you lift if the other guy won't? He lived in that friction. He didn't pretend otherwise. The evidence sat on the pole charts for years. He owned Saturdays. Deep brake, feather, rotate, straighten, done. And Monaco, that was his private lease with renewal rights. 6 wins there turned a street track into a signature, a place where barriers looked like scenery and mistakes felt illegal. The trick wasn't raw courage. It was control so fine you forgot how narrow the limits were. His hands told the story. Micro-input wizardry. Steering corrections in millimeters, not inches. Left foot settling the car, right foot living on modulation, holding the rear just shy of snap. He'd add 2% throttle where others added 10, and the car thanked him with traction that didn't exist for anyone else. That's not hype, that's craft. Then Suzuka wrote chapters that still split fans. Score settling at championship stakes, grid slots, first corners, and choices that echoed down decades. He made moves that said, "I'm not yielding this space," and forced the rulebook to keep up with the will to win. People pick sides. The tape doesn't blink. Those calls still start arguments on long flights. And then there's the day that froze the myth. Imola, 1994. The loss turned the legend to stone. The highlights stopped, the reverence grew, and every old lap felt heavier. You can't separate the speed from the shadow after that. It's part of why the name walks into every debate without knocking. He taught a generation that speed needs soul. You feel it in how kids talk about his lines, not just his trophies. He didn't sell, "It's the car." He sold the idea that the driver unlocks the car with touch, nerve, and a mind that can sit inside chaos without rushing. Technique wasn't a secret code. It was visible in every small correction. Mini payoff. This is why qualifying laps sometimes feel like prayers answered at 300 kilometers per hour. He took the most violent sport and gave it this strange calm at the limit. Saturdays glowed. Sundays carried that edge and set the bar for the man who would turn winning into a system and make a whole factory march in step. Now meet the man who made records feel temporary. Michael Schumacher, the record breaker. He didn't join Ferrari to win. He moved in, renovated the place, and built a dynasty. New gym, new tools, new habits. He turned a big red opera into a factory that sang on key. That wasn't fate. That was a driver arriving with a plan and making everyone live by it. 7 championships, 2 with Benetton, 5 with Ferrari, laid out the blueprint and then stamped it in red. Build a core team, grind the weaknesses, repeat the reps until the car and the crew do the job by muscle memory. Then came the run that made the sport recalibrate. 5 straight with Ferrari, ending a long title drought and turning Sundays into routine. Everyone else showed up with hope. He brought process. The calendar felt scripted because the work behind it never blinked. Was it too dominant to enjoy, or the standard you chase forever? Yes, you can complain while you watch the laps melt, or you can study the template. He took winning and turned it into a workflow. Examples? Start with the body, ruthless fitness. Fit enough to hammer qualifying, then keep the rhythm while others faded. Then the miles, endless testing, the kind that takes vague feedback and turns it into clear setup gains. He didn't just drive fast, he sat with engineers, dug through traces, and set baselines that made the next sim run worth something. Team building mattered. He brought people he trusted, locked in roles, and pulled the garage in one direction. The insight is boring and deadly. Marginal gains everywhere. Pit stops shaved into muscle memory snapshots. Launch maps dialed, so starts became an ambush. Outlaps that slammed the undercut shut because the tires hit the window right now, not after 2 corners. Even the in-lap had purpose. Every second banked, so strategy had teeth. String enough tiny wins and a season can't breathe. There's a micro story that seals the mindset. He came back after retiring, with no promise of trophies and still went racing. That's love for the craft, not stat padding. The reflex was there, the hunger was there, and even when the podiums hid, the drive to refine never left. He tested, he fought, he learned new tools, because this is what he did. Records stacked like furniture. 91 wins, poles, podiums, numbers that looked untouchable until one guy later kept rolling into Q3 like it was breakfast. That's the scale we're talking about. You don't need the exact tally to feel how long those marks sat like a locked door at the end of the hallway. The build at Ferrari ran deeper than speed. Culture shifted. The driver became CEO of performance. Meetings had edge. Roles got clear. If the car wasn't right, the loop from feedback to fix tightened. He set pace in the garage as much as on track. No excuses, no shortcuts, just iterative improvement until Sunday felt inevitable. The red suits moved like a single unit because the guy in car number whatever demanded it. Mini payoff. He didn't just win, he industrialized winning. A conveyor belt of results, stamped with the same ruthless quality control every round. So the next question writes itself. When every weekend becomes a verdict on your legacy, how do you stay cool and still deliver? So here's the part where cool under pressure becomes a routine, not a miracle. Lewis Hamilton, the GOAT contender. How do you stay cool when every weekend is either a podium or an argument about your legacy? You wake up, strap in, and accept that the race is half throttle, half courtroom. He lives in that noise, shrugs, and still drops laps that make engineers nod like they've seen a ghost. First came the chaos degree. Young, rapid, in a car that loved drama as much as it loved curbs, and he still walked out with a title, his first championship in 2008, sealed in the most dramatic way. He wasn't the youngest champion in the end. Sebastian Vettel later took that mark, but the clutch gene was stamped right there. Then the Mercedes chapter turned into a clinic. Fewer rough edges, tighter Sundays, radio calm that said, "I've got the gap, you've got the weather, let's meet in Parc Fermé." The tone switched from heroics to control. Is it the car? Sure, but then why is he still there when races go sideways? Safety cars wreck plans, virtual slice margins, a front wing chips, and somehow he reappears in the mirrors of the guy who thought he'd cleared the mess. That's not vibes. That's racecraft, plus patience, plus a brain that can do fuel and tire math while trail braking. Watch the wet. He reads grip like a second language. Early phase, he probes lines nobody else wants. Then stitches a lap where the rear breathes but never snaps. Dry chaos, the late brake pass that bends but doesn't break the Apex rulebook. Then a clean exit that locks the door. Qualifying is the trailer. One lap on a knife edge, the timer blinks green, and you're head rent-free for Sunday. The real hack is adaptation. Refueling vanished. The rhythm changed, and he learned tire life like it paid rent. Hybrids arrived. Energy units turned races into resource spreadsheets, and he got faster inside the rules. New aero cycles shuffled the grid, and he still found the line that preserved the fronts without killing the launch. Styles moved, he moved with them. That last corner in 2008 is the origin story for Clutch. Pressure at full tilt, the must-pass landed, title secured. Then 6 more during the hybrid era with Mercedes, 7 total, tying the all-time mark, delivered by relentless execution. Not miracle drives every week, just polished weekends where the small pieces never fell off the table. Outlaps timed, in-laps neat, undercuts denied by seconds you didn't notice building. He's bigger than the cockpit, which is part of the load. Global spotlight, culture, fashion, causes, cameras. He carries that, then goes out and threads qualifying like the world isn't shouting. It's a weird split. Leader on Monday, lap time merchant on Saturday. The engine doesn't care about your profile. The clock says yes or no, and the numbers snowballed. Triple digits in wins, the most in history, tell you the same story in a different font. Consistency across rule cycles, teammate switches, and tire shifts. That's the cheat code. Keep turning up at a 9 out of 10 and wait for the field to blink. Races fall to the driver who doesn't make the second mistake. Mini payoff. He's not just fast, he's durable greatness under a microscope. Every lap graded, Every word clipped, and yet the strike rate holds. Which brings us to the debates you never settle, the ones that keep the group chat loud long past midnight. The eternal arguments. Alright, time to put names on the arguments that never die. 3 questions you'll never solve. Is it the car or the driver? Which teammate was actually better? And who's the real GOAT? You won't sleep, your battery will die, and you'll still hit send. Yes, yes. Let's start with the just the car versus just the driver food fight. Dominant packages don't appear by magic. The fastest driver helps build them. Setup direction, development priorities, feedback loops, those come from the seat. A monster car will flatter a decent driver, sure, yet the elite turn a strong chassis into a season you can't breathe in. Look at it like a band. The designer writes the score, the driver plays first chair, and the lap time is the album. Teammate wars are the fairest measuring stick and also the messiest office politics you've ever seen. Same car, same meetings, same data. But the human stuff tilts the table. Who gets the new floor first? Who gets the strategy swing when both plans can't run at once? Even DRS trains change outcomes if one car gets released into traffic. Pure comparisons? In theory. In practice, the garage is a chessboard with coffee spilled on it. Examples live rent-free. The Senna-Prost garage civil war turned every briefing into a legal seminar. Rosberg-Hamilton pushed a friendship into a stress test, split by set-up paths, and starts that felt like coin flips with knives. Weber-Vettel gave us "Don't do that" mate energy where team orders met sharp elbows and the debrief got spicy. Same cars, very different Sundays. Here's the real curve. The rulebook is a rotating final boss. Aerodynamic tweaks, engine maps, tire constructions, each reset shuffles the tier list. The driver who adapts quickest keeps the crown. It can be brake shapes this year, energy deployment next year, and floor flex the season after. If your style needs a certain balance, changing the front wing or tire sidewall can ghost your edge overnight. When the ground rules move, tricks that worked stop working. New tricks pay double. When regs flip, legends either evolve or look very mortal for a season. You'll see a qualifier lose half a tenth in the same corner they owned last year. You'll see a tire whisperer burn fronts because the compound window moved by 5 degrees. Then the best recalibrate. New breakpoints, new diff maps, new lines that hide the weakness and unlock another tool. The ones who last across cycles don't cling to a comfort zone. They rebuild one. Political capital decides who steers the ship. Champions don't just drive, they nudge design meetings. They ask for stability here, peak load there, aero balance at speed X, not Y. They fight for the upgrade plan that suits their feel. That shapes the car's DNA before the launch photos ever hit your feed. When rules shift, that influence keeps the car inside their window and keeps the results coming. We also need to talk survivorship bias. Long careers inflate odds of stacking titles. More starts, more shots. But pressure deflates many. New teammates arrive hungry. Teams wobble. Rule resets slap you. To keep winning, you need a mind that can reset role, style, and ego without losing edge. Mini payoff. 3 titles isn't luck. It's enduring resets, beating the person across the garage, and molding a machine to your hands until a season starts to feel like weather you control. So here's where we land. The club is tiny. Only 11 drivers have stacked 3 or more championships, and they cover every era, rule flip, and tech jump since 1950. That's speed, stamina, and season control across moving targets. You're not chasing luck, you're managing chaos, shaping the car, and taxing everyone's patience until the flag agrees. Drop your GOAT in the comments, and the one rule you'd change to dethrone a dynasty. Ground effects tweak, cost cap nuke, reverse grids for spice? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Grab your popcorn for the next deep dive. We'll stir more trouble, settle zero debates, and have a simply lovely time doing it.